Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. I saw that Hecarim had a fairly low win rate, but whenever I was playing Hecarim, I was doing fairly well on him. I would get I think I had I don't know, a 60% win rate or so on him. This is only normal games, it's just me playing about. But I wanted to know why Hecarim was doing so bad when he felt so good to me. I thought he was going to be one of the best rated junglers, but then I check and now see he's one of the lowest rated junglers. That seemed to be fairly surprising to me. So I play Hecarim and build Hecarim very differently to how most people build Hecarim. I'll show you my normal build now, and I'll show you why I go this build over some more popular builds like Doanel's build, where he goes hyper lethality and Shojin and stuff like that. But I go something different. I'll show you that now. So in my opinion, the best build for Hecarim would be Umbral first, and then when you back, you buy a tier, and then first time you build is Umbral. Then depending on how fed you get, how much gold you have, you can either build that into your tier item, your Manamune, or your Muramana. And then after that you should get either Phantom Dancer or Triforce, depending on if you want more HP or if you just want more speed, attack speed, raw damage. If you have less money, then you can go for the Phantom Dancer, and then you should take that into Gargoyles, I would say, because Gargoyles give you some very nice tank stats. And then last item you should build should be a Steraks, in my opinion. Or you can change up the last item a bit, it doesn't have to be Steraks. The same with Gargoyles. Let's say you wanted to go so you sold boots at this point, so let's say you wanted to go, which is a bit weird on Hecarim, but it'll make sense because I'll tell you why in a minute. Let's say you wanted to go instead Dead Man's Plate and Force of Nature. You could do that instead of going Steraks and Gargoyles, but I would suggest against it generally. So I explain why I go the items I go and what advantages they have. So I did a quick test with all of the different items, testing which one did the most damage, the least damage in 15 seconds, right? What I found was Phantom Dancer did 5,677 damage in 15 seconds. Spear of Shojin did 6,067 damage in 15 seconds. Ravenous Hydra with 0 stacks did 5,647 damage in 15 seconds. A fully stacked Ravenous Hydra did about 7,227 damage, and a Duskblade did about 5,616 damage in 15 seconds. So all of these do a lot of damage, right? A fair amount of damage, but when you factor in how much they cost, then it gets a bit more complicated at that. We can't just look at raw damage stats, right? We can't just look at raw damage numbers. So in my opinion from this, I would say that Phantom Dancer is the best because it offers the best amount of damage for the lowest amount of gold, in my opinion, when you factor both of those in. Plus you get the chance to crit. When I was testing this, I got I think 1 or 2 crits at max, and you could probably get a lot more considering you have a lot more attack speed with the Phantom Dancer, right? So they kind of scale off each other, not to mention the movement speed and the attack speed and stuff like that. Sorry, the movement speed and the ghost passive. The ghost passive is somewhat useful, I guess. Yeah. If you wanted to know the Duskblade version with armor, I set up a test dummy with about 50 armor, and I did around 4,064 damage in 15 seconds, and that's with Duskblade. And with Phantom Dancer I did around 4,072 damage, so just about the same, what you'd expect, right? So that's why I really like Phantom Dancer. No one goes Phantom Dancer anymore. I think the item's amazing, especially for its cost. Phantom Dancer is one of the best items and one of the most cost efficient items in the game, actually. If you were to look at Phantom Dancer, I'll talk a bit later about the gold efficiencies and stuff like that, right? But I'll talk about why. Next I'll talk about Triforce, okay? Triforce has been kind of swept under the rug. Not many people go Triforce anymore because they don't think it's very good for whatever reason that might be. I completely disagree with that. I think Triforce is kind of busted. If we were to compare all of these stats from before and we were to bring them all back, in the same amount of time, in that 15 seconds, Triforce does 6,788 damage with armor. So that's with the 50 armor. So it does 2,000 more damage than Phantom Dancer. It does more than 2,000 more than all the others, and it does about 2,000 more than Duskblade. It's a very OP item to have first, especially on Hecarim, because it gives movement speed, it gives a Sheen passive. The Sheen passive is amazing with Hecarim. I feel like Hecarim players have forgot how OP Sheen actually is, because no one goes Sheen on Hecarim anymore, even though his Q is very good with Sheen, and his E is an auto attack, so I don't really know why people don't go Sheen anymore, and then powered auto attack, I don't really know why people don't go Sheen anymore. Doesn't make any sense to me personally. But yeah. So if we were to look at the all of the different builds, the main builds, and we were to compare the effective HP and the damage which they do in these 15 seconds, I have them all here, and then I'll talk about which one's better, the advantages, disadvantages, and what other stuff to do, right? So if you were to go my original build, which I used to run but I don't run anymore because it doesn't give you enough tankiness in my opinion. If you were to go Ravenous, Phantom Dancer, Gargoyles, Triforce, Umbral, and Tier item Muramana, you would do about 19,395 damage in 15 seconds, and you would have 6,919 effective HP, okay? If you were to go Duskblade, Spear of Shojin, the Tier item Manamune, Ravenous Hydra, Dead Man's, and Force of Nature, which is one of the most common builds now, you would do 16,704 damage in 15 seconds, and you would only have 5,156 effective HP. Okay, so if you were to do the last build, my favorite build, you would do 18,152 damage in 15 seconds. Oh, that build would be Steraks, Phantom Dancer, Gargoyles, Triforce, Umbral, and the Tier item Muramana. So as I said, you would do 18,152 damage in 15 seconds, and you would have 7,471 effective HP. So it's slightly less in damage, slightly higher in effective HP, which I think is worth it generally, right? Effective HP here can be debated a bit depending on what items you go. Generally, you want to go the last item on the domination tree. I'll bring it up here. I'll put it up on screen. You want to go that item because it reduces the cooldown of your items, your item cooldowns, right? Which means you can stack tier faster. Also means that you'll have a lower cooldown on your Gargoyles and on your Steraks, right? But you could argue about the effective HP there. You could argue that shield HP is less because it's on a longer cooldown, or you could argue that shield HP should be factored in differently because it's on a long cooldown, depending on the cooldown stuff like that, which is fine. I agree with that to an extent. But this is just what I find to be good. There can be obviously debate about it, but this is my ideal. This is what I think would be the most correct build in a general circumstance. So now I'll go into each one of the items which I chose, why I chose them, and why I choose to build them in the order which I choose to build them. So first of all, we have Umbral Glaive. Umbral Glaive is really overpowered, and I think people realize this. Low elo, high elo, being able to just walk by wards and know they're there and be able to clear them, and just like one-shot them, it gives you, and if you go zombie ward as well, it gives you gold, it gives you vision score, just vision generally. It's not a rare event for me to have more vision score than my support. It gives you it's a very cheap item. It gives you lethality, it gives you ability haste, it gives you really everything you want on Hecarim early, apart from machine passive, but it doesn't use a sheen, so what do you want, you know? Not only is it cheap, but it's also gold efficient, which is good to look into, right? An item could be really, really cheap, but it could still not be gold efficient, right? And an item could be very expensive and still be gold efficient as well, right? Like Rabadon's is a very expensive item, but if you're building it last, it's extremely gold efficient, right? So it's about 106% gold efficient on the Umbral Glaive, which is amazing. Most items aren't even 100% gold efficient, if I remember correctly. So going on to the next item here, Phantom Dancer. In my opinion, Phantom Dancer, as I spoke about before, is probably one of the most underrated items in the entire game. It is 103% gold efficient at base, and 153% gold efficient when it's fully stacked, which isn't hard to stack. You just need to auto attack. You just need to fight the enemy. It's not like a hard to stack ability. You don't need to hit any special CC, especially on Hecarim. You don't need to hit anything. The 14% bonus move speed on Hecarim is great, and the 55% attack speed is good on any AD champion. People think that certain champions don't need attack speed, but unless that champion is like gets it innately in their kit, like Urgot or Kled or something like that, then they do. Then attack speed benefits them greatly, right? Attack speed is great for Hecarim, despite what other people might say, because Hecarim, I'll talk a bit more about how Hecarim should be played and how he's played now and stuff like that at the end of the video. But yeah, attack speed is very good on Hecarim. So then it's Triforce or Muramana. So I'll talk about Triforce first here. So Triforce again is a heavily undervalued item. It is most likely the highest single item long fight damage item in the game. It probably does the most damage out of any item for long drawn out fights, apart from maybe Ravenous Hydra fully stacked, but even that's somewhat debatable. It also gives move speed, which works great with Hecarim, as I mentioned before, so that's why it's a good item. I don't really need more information than that, right? In my opinion, it gives everything you need, right? It gives attack speed, which synergizes well with Phantom Dancer, and just generally with Hecarim. It synergizes well with Conqueror, so does Phantom Dancer, but again, I'll talk about that a bit later. Muramana's next here. So Muramana pretty much speaks for itself. Every Hecarim player goes Muramana because it does the largest amount of excess damage on your Q out of any item and is not close at all. So I ran the numbers here. So Muramana does 220, makes your Q do 222 damage. Collector makes it do 115 damage. Duskblade makes it do 165 damage. All of these are with dummies with 50 armor, I believe, 50 armor and MR. Ravenous with 0 stacks makes it do 148. We can assume it does about 170 with it fully stacked, give or take, but nowhere, not 200, nowhere near that. And Shojin does 148 damage per Q. So Muramana is obviously the best out of all of these, and it's cheaper, so it just takes a while to stack, and then you can go Ingenious Hunter, and then you go Ingenious Hunter to make it stack quicker. So next, Gargoyle Stoneplate. Gargoyle Stoneplate is fallen out of favor with a lot of people, mainly because of its low gold efficiency. It's a fairly low gold efficiency item. It's only about I think 80 something% gold efficiency, which is awful. It's terrible. I won't lie to you, it's a bad gold efficiency. However, when it's fully stacked, the item gives you 25% increased resistances, meaning the item itself becomes powerful the later on in the game you go, turning your, this is at level 18, it turns your effective HP with this build from 7,471 to 8,247 in a 5v5 fight, or in a 1v1 or in a 1v5 fight if you're ahead enough, right? I think that this is worth it, mainly because of how good an item Aegis of the Legion is. Aegis of Legion. I think this item is busted for a single purchase, especially on the jungler. You're not against anybody directly in lane, and if you think you're too squishy, you can just buy this item and then just wait. You can just sit on it, which I've done a few times. It's come to the point where I'm extremely squishy, but I'm getting mixed damage, so I'm not just gonna, how can I say, I think it's best for me just to build an Aegis of Legion a lot of the times in these circumstances. Also, if I'm getting heavy single target damage, a single type target damage, I guess you could say, like heavy physical damage, I will just buy 2 cloth armors, because that you can build 2 cloth armors into gargoyles, or you could get 2 nullifying what do you call them? The magic resist cloaks. I forget the name of them. You go 2 of them, and then you could also build that into a gargoyles. I think it has a really, really nice build path. Generally, the items themselves aren't too expensive and can be built pretty much any time throughout the game. So the last item is personal preference generally. However, I would say the 2 main options here would be Steraks or Ravenous. Steraks because it scales extremely well. It gives you 60 AD at level 18 on Hecarim. Or Ravenous because its passive is easier to stack the later on in the game you get, because you can clear minions extremely easy. You can like single Q and kill a whole wave of minions. And if you lose your stacks at that late in the game, you're probably just going to lose the game anyway, so it doesn't really matter. If you die, you probably die in a team fight, so either you're the only person who died and you just win the game, or everyone died and you're just going to lose the game. So it doesn't really matter if you lose them at that point. So now I'll talk quickly about item synergy. There's one big item synergy which I think is kind of busted and no one really talks about, is Steraks synergy with Triforce. Triforce increases your base AD, meaning you can get an item which gives you 72 AD when Triforce is fully stacked, which means that you are getting 400 HP and 72 AD, which makes the item extremely gold efficient, insanely gold efficient, right? Plus the HP it has within the item scales off that, and the HP synergizes well with the gargoyles as well, because if you don't go, you don't really have a very big gargoyle shield, which is why I've moved away somewhat from Ravenous, because the gargoyle shield is one of like the big reasons why the item is so good, right? So I'm going to talk about runes, and I'll go into how to play Hecarim, how I think Hecarim should be played, and different misconceptions which people have about the champion. So runes, I would say there are 4 runes which you should go. You shouldn't really go anything other than these 4. Conqueror, Predator, Phase Rush, and Aftershock. So 3 of these runes are fairly self-explanatory apart from one, and that is Aftershock. And I'll tell you why Aftershock is actually fairly good on Hecarim a lot of the times. My reason for using Aftershock generally is fairly simple. Most champions that go Aftershock are not able to utilize the actual ability of Aftershock because of the duration of the CC. During Aftershock you get increased resistances, however if you're in a 1v1, for example, and you CC the person, they can't hit you, so it doesn't matter if you have increased resistances because they can't hit you anyway. However, with Hecarim, his stun is only for 0.25 seconds in his E. The Aftershock damage reduction is actually effective here because his stun is such a short cooldown, and he's moving as well during the time of the stun effectively. So you can actually use the resistances very well on Hecarim. Not to mention its synergy with Gargoyles, because Gargoyles also increases your MR and armor, and Aftershock also does that, and it scales well with health, and it's just a good scaling item. You can also go Conqueror, which has amazing synergy with with Triforce, with Phantom Dancer, and with Hecarim's passive on his Q, because you need to 3-stack your Q, you need to stack up Conqueror, you need to stack up Triforce, and you need to stack up Phantom Dance, which means you have 4 stacking abilities, which means that you're a very, very good 1v1 duelist, right? Because you just get stronger and stronger the longer on the fight goes. Now I'll talk quickly about how Hecarim should be played, or how I play Hecarim and how other people play Hecarim, and the discrepancies there. So when I think about Hecarim, a lot of people say that Hecarim should be like a backline diver. He should dive the backline, kill the backline enemies, and then he should, I don't know, try and get out effectively. He should be, even with like he should be almost like a one-shot assassin tank sort of thing. However, I think that's true to an extent, but I also think he's a very, very good just general team fight bruiser because of his W, mainly. His W is what really turns him in. His W, in my opinion, is what makes him not this one-shot backline champion and turns him into this long drawn-out team fight-esque champion, right? With Hecarim's W, he's able to heal a lot, and he gets MR and armor, and his healing is increased depending on how much AD he has, and it's increased by other enemies, other allies attacking enemies, or enemy champions, enemy monsters, whatever it might be, right? So because of that, I think that Hecarim should be played more as a team fight bruiser, so he's engaged, his team engages off of him, and because his team is engaging off of him, he doesn't necessarily need to one-shot them, but he needs his team to do a lot of the damage as well in order to get done what needs to get done. And you might say that that makes Hecarim very team reliant, and that is true, but only in 5v5s, which should be team reliant. This is the League is a team-based game. You can't completely rely on yourself to do everything. You can still one-shot with this build, obviously, because you have high move speed. However, it's better to be used in team fights where your team is fighting with you, because you are constantly getting buffed the more your team fights with you with the healing, and you are also in these 5v5s you're getting the Gargoyles passive as well. So generally I would say that he should be used more like that because of his W ability, and you still have lethality, a bit of lethality, so you can still one-shot people in the backline if you need to do that, or if that's what you want to do. So yeah, I'll say that's all that I have to say. I might be wrong about some things, and I'm completely open to that. If anybody has any critiques on my ideas, then please comment down, make a video, whatever you want to do. Test out the build yourself if you want to. And yeah, thank you a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which I'll make on Diana, my second main. So see ya. So quickly, I want to talk about another thing which I found that was happening with a lot of Hecarim players. Something I like to call the no hands Hecarim playstyle, or no hands Hecarim build. So effectively, what an argument was made against me that attack speed kind of sucks on Hecarim because you want to use your E move speed in order to Q a bunch of times, and then you can't auto attack while you're in your E, because if you auto attack you'll use up your E charge and you'll lose your movement speed, right? And you can stay at max MS for like 2 seconds or so, give or take, when you're in your E on Hecarim. And so they would say that attack speed is not very good because in a lot of fights you're not actually attacking, right? You're not actually auto-attacking. And I would kind of argue against this, mainly for one reason, and that being Hecarim should be played more around his W than his E, right? Hecarim's W is one of the best abilities in the game, and people don't really understand it, right? If you're team fighting, you're getting an insane amount of healing based on your AD, which you're stacking in team fights because you have, this is with my build, because you have Triforce and you have Conqueror, right? Along with that, you are getting 35 armor and MR on your whenever you have your E active, right? So you're getting all of this just from your E. And I understand the ability to dodge spells and stuff like this, and that might be really, really good against dodgeable CC, but generally you want to be auto-attacking most of the time. A lot of your damage is coming from auto-attacks, right? Your auto-attack time with this build, I think, is just over 1 auto per second. It might be quite a bit over, I will have to recheck it. But you would need your Q cooldown to be less than 1 second in order to compete with your auto attack damage, or auto attack depending on if you have Sheen or not. If you want the maximal amount of damage, you need to be able to, I don't know how to say, you can tank skill shots with your W, you don't need to dodge all of them. But if it's hard CC, then I understand playing like this, but you should only play around this around hard CC. You shouldn't play around it with general abilities, especially late game. Early game obviously you want to dodge everything, but late game you have armor, MR, healing, all of these things for a reason, right? You take damage, you heal it up, you're like a very strong frontline damage dealer. And a lot of the times why Hecarim was seen as this this bursty assassin type champion before was because these were all before his changes. Hecarim became a much more long teamfight skirmish based champion after they changed his Q to make it stack up more, and after they changed his W to give him more MR and magic resist, right? Because now he can be more of a frontline engage sort of carry champion who does well in long team fights, rather than a bursty assassin who takes out the backline, right? But that's just my opinion, what I've seen. But if you want to play it like Doanel, that's fine as well, I have no problem with it. But I don't think you're going to be getting the maximal value out of Hecarim if you do this. But obviously there's going to be some debate around it, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. Thank you.